Welcome to Capitol View, the program where we talk about state issues, sometimes federal issues, and how they just might affect your life. I'm Bernie Schoenburg from the State Journal-Register. Boy, have we had a week. We got through the election, guys and ladies. On we go. With me today to talk about some of these developments and ramifications for our state and nation. Charlie Wheeler is back. He is retired director of the Public Affairs Reporting Program, University of Illinois, Springfield, longtime Chicago Sun-Times State House reporter before that, and just generally a guy who knows what's going on in Springfield. Charlie, welcome back.
Thank you. It's always fun to be here.
And perhaps the hardest working man in radio, Dave Dahl, who I hear morning and night, WTAX State House reporter in Springfield, also morning anchor. I don't know how you do it, Dave, but welcome back and thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, I don't stop to think about it. By the way, I'm not sure the election's over, Bernie.
There is that. As we tape this program, we don't yet have an announced winner for president, and there are a couple of other things hanging in the balance. But Charlie, let's talk in general about the election on Tuesday. It was supposed to be, people thought, because perhaps President Trump wasn't so popular in the suburbs, that Democrats would have a good day. There was also the Mike Madigan factor that Republicans were using against Democrats because Madigan is quite a controversial figure and leads the Democratic Party. But Republicans actually had a pretty good day in Illinois.
Yeah, I guess relatively speaking, they did. The expectations were very high that Madigan would add to his lopsided margin already in the House, that he'd pick up several seats. He did not. As things stand now, and there are a couple races yet to be decided, he looks like he will have lost a net of 2 seats. On the other hand, it's quite possible that in the Senate, the Democrats may have picked up a seat. And of course, there was an expectations here in central Illinois that Betsy Dirksen-Londrigan, on her second attempt, might be able to oust Congressman Rodney Davis. That did not happen. And in fact, it was a pretty lopsided victory for Davis. So the folks who were expecting that Democrats would do really, really good, I think they were disappointed. And I think one of the things to note is that at the top of the ticket, the Biden-Harris ticket blew Trump-Pence out of the water in Illinois. Dick Durbin won another term with little or no sweat. There was a fight for a congressional seat on the southwest side of Chicago. Marie Newman, a newcomer, won that seat pretty handily. So the Democrats did not meet all the expectations, but it occurs to me maybe those expectations were a little high for what's realistic. And one of the things that I noticed, and I went back and ran the numbers, the Republican Party is almost becoming a regional party in Illinois, at least at the legislative level. The seats that the Democrats lost, there were, as the count stands now, 2 downstate, one in far southern Illinois, one in the Metro East area. Those results are going to hold up. There's also 2 seats that they may have lost up in the suburbs, the northwest suburbs. One of those is pretty sure that it's going to be a Republican pickup. On the other hand, the Republicans lost 2 seats in DuPage, well, one in DuPage, I guess they're both in DuPage County, Naperville and Wheaton. And that reflects an ongoing shift of the balance of power in the Chicago area to favor Democrats. Back in the day, Bernie, you mentioned I was a longtime Sun-Times reporter. When I started, the notion that a Democrat could get elected in DuPage County, that would be like, oh, sure, when pigs fly, or something like that. And now, if you look at the actual numbers, the seats in the Illinois House, for example, and I'm going to refer to my notes here, there are a total of 78 seats out of the 118 that are in the city of Chicago entirely. Some lap over into the burbs, others are in Cook County suburbs and the collar counties around Chicago exclusively. Out of those 78 seats in the House, Democrats won 64 as things stand now. Republicans only picked up 14, and it used to be the suburbs were their strength. Downstate, there are 40, or in the Senate, in the Senate, there are 40 downstate.
I think we have 40 Democrats in the Senate, yeah.
Yeah, at any event, the in the Senate, there are 20 downstate districts, 6 held by Democrats, and those are all around major cities, 14 by Republicans. Only 5 of the 19 Republican Senate members in the next session are going to be from the suburbs. And so that's a huge shift in power. And I think part of it was that we talked about how President Trump did not fare well in Illinois as a whole, but I've not seen the county by county numbers, and Bernie or Dave, maybe you guys have, but I expect that he will have done very well outside the city of Chicago in the suburbs. And he probably, based on that, he probably would wind up with more votes than Biden outside the urban area.
Yeah, well, he did win Sangamon County. I know that. And as we tape this, Sherry Bustos is a member of Congress from the 17th district in Illinois. She's actually a Springfield native, but doesn't represent here. That's mostly in Western Illinois. But she got a scare from Esther Joy King, but ended up winning. But up north, Lauren Underwood is a Democratic freshman who came in with the Democratic sweep to a U.S. House seat in northern Illinois, and I know it goes into DeKalb as well, or Sycamore area. And Jim Oberweis, the state senator, actually declared victory one day this week, and Underwood said we still have votes to count, so that's undetermined as we tape this. Anyway, Dave Dahl, other than President Trump, Mike Madigan, who is only running for re-election in his own district, but wants to be speaker again, we think, but is under some pressure. He was kind of on the ballot everywhere in that 13th congressional district race. Betsy Landrigan ended up in ads against her with Mike Madigan's face, and there were judge races, and pretty much every Democrat around in a controversial race was linked to Mike Madigan. What's his future, and what does that mean?
Boy, that's a good question. Well, he's in my mailbox, too. The Republicans have been criticized for pounding away at fire Madigan, and it just might be working now. And Madigan's picked up more baggage because of the ComEd investigation, and because you could argue he was late to the game in the Me Too investigation, rather late to awaken to keeping some of his lieutenants in line and dismissing some of them. It's hard to imagine him retiring. A lot of folks in the General Assembly and the House are saying he ought to step down. I'm not going to vote for him. Of course, one Democrat, Stephanie Kifowit, has stood up and said, I want to be Speaker. I'll take him on. You can't imagine him capitulating to any of this, but it'll make for a lot of tension and a lot of interest and a lot of drama the second Wednesday of 2021 down at UIS Auditorium.
Right, when the House is scheduled to reconvene and choose their speaker. What's interesting is I saw Senator Durbin, who really he didn't have strong opposition this time. Even Mark Kern, the Republican, didn't have much funding, and pretty much nobody thought that was going to be a close race. But he just said, when asked about Mike Madigan at a Union Hall in Springfield on Election Day, I'll have more to say about that later. And then he went on WTTW Public TV in Chicago and basically said the day after the election or within a couple of days that we paid a heavy price for the speaker's chairmanship of the Democratic Party all across our state, and the advertising told that story. So you have a leading voice like Senator Durbin talking about Madigan as a liability in the election. We know that Governor Pritzker had wanted Speaker Madigan to tell what he knows, even as the House was investigating this ComEd deal in which the Speaker says he did nothing wrong, but the giant utility has agreed with federal prosecutors to pay a $200 million fine, claiming in a deferred prosecution agreement where they're cooperating, but said that they gave Madigan allies jobs and contracts for a number of years to curry favor with the Speaker. The Speaker says he didn't really know there was anything like that going on, other than he recommends people for jobs, as all politicians do. And again, he's been charged with no wrongdoing, but the thing is catching up, and we will see. I haven't seen a line form behind Stephanie Kifowit yet, Dave, but you're right. We'll see what happens.
If there truly is an opening, I'm sure there'll be no shortage of candidates, but come on. You really think that Steve Brown is going to send out a news release, say Christmas Eve, saying that the speaker has decided, this is a good time for me to step down. I don't think that's going to happen.
Well, sometimes strange things happen, but we will keep an eye on this. Charlie Wheeler, one of the actually, it was another win for the Republicans, and a big loss for the governor, but it involves your specialty, which is the state budget. And that's the constitutional amendment that would have changed Illinois off of the mandatory flat tax on the income tax side. More than $50 million, I believe, spent on each side of this fight, and the no's won. So Illinois must have a flat tax, and the governor's mad about it. Charlie, what's the effect of this, and where do we go from here?
Well, I think one of the takeaways is that there was more money spent pro and con on this particular proposed constitutional amendment that had been spent historically on races for governor in the state until the last time out in 2018, when it was two big bucks guys going against each other, Governor Pritzker, former Governor Rauner. It struck me that the amendment, more than anything else, was at a disadvantage because the people who were promoting it tried to say, here's what the facts are. The people who were opposed to it, all they had to do was dissemble and suggest, well, this might happen, you never know. And put enough doubt in people's minds that it was going to fail. As a matter of fact, I believe the no's, when they get everything tallied up, will exceed the yeses, and the amendment would have needed 60% yeses of people who voted on that particular question. And the thing that I think people are going to be very surprised to wake up and find out, oh, guess what? My taxes are probably going to go up anyway. And the argument was, well, you don't know if this passes. These are the opposition. If this passes, they'll be able to tax retirement income. Well, guess what? They could tax retirement income today if they were in session. Oh, well, sooner or later, there's going to be bracket creep, and it's going to go on the middle class and not just the fat cats. Well, guess what? Chances are there will be a tax increase on everybody. So that, as I said, the opponents weren't particularly honest. They threw enough doubt and enough dissembling misinformation to defeat it. And one of the comments that struck me is that one of the spokespeople for the anti-tax group said, and I'm quoting here, a win for small business owners, middle-class families, family farmers, retirees, and large employers. In this election, Illinois voters sent a resounding message that with an $8 billion deficit and two massive tax hikes in the last 10 years, we cannot trust Springfield politicians with another tax hike. So I'm thinking to myself, well, that's kind of shading it. Yeah, there were two tax hikes, but the first one expired, and the second one was for less than what the first one had been. And how do they expect they're going to get away with this $8 billion deficit without having additional revenue, maybe from Congress and the federal government, who knows? Or
structural reform, Charlie.
Yeah, structural reform. Yeah, well, Dave, I don't know if you saw the governor spoke about this after it was done, but he's upset because he was giving the argument that, either we're going to have to raise taxes on everybody under the flat tax, and then, poorer and middle class folks will hurt, or we'll have to have massive cuts in state government, or we'll have this amendment, which would allow us the graduated thing, which only the top 3% of earners, and they like to say millionaires and billionaires, but it was everybody making over $250,000 would pay more. That's not happening now. So those other alternatives are there, and he says there will be pain. So
one of the things is I actually ran the numbers. He talked about a 15% cut.
Yeah.
And if you look at where we spend our money, a 15% cut, for example, for elementary and secondary education would be $1.5 billion. If you were to cut Eastern Illinois University, it'd be like $6 million. Western would be $9 million. Southern would be $29 million. ISU would be $10 million.
Wow.
Do we really think, and do the people in Charleston, Macomb, Normal, Bloomington, Carbondale, do they want to see their universities get hit that way?
Yeah.
Those are a lot of Republican districts, by the way.
Yeah. Well, Yeah, and the governor, I mean, it's interesting because he was mad because the Republican Party, while it didn't personally put forth all the money for this, the rhetoric was clearly on the side of against that tax, and all the Republicans in the General Assembly were against it. So now the governor's saying, well, when these cuts happen or these tax increases happen, blame Republicans. I don't know. We have a divided state anyway. We have a divided country in so many ways, but this will go on, and we'll go from there. Dave, as we do that, there's going to be a change on the Republican side in the Senate with an announcement from Senator Bill Brady of Bloomington, who also represents part of Springfield. His district comes into, I think he represents the fairgrounds and surrounding.
He represents the part that Tim Butler does.
Right. So he has been for a few years now the leader of the Senate Republicans. He says he's not going to do that again.
In his memo to the caucus, he said that he promised that while he was leader, he would not seek another office. And so you can extrapolate that to say, now that he's not going to be leader, effective in January, the time may be right for him to run for another office. He's run for governor 3 times and lost, ran for Congress once and lost. And this week, we're officially in the 2022 campaign cycle. So maybe just, spitballing here, he wants to get out in front and be the first Republican to declare for governor in 2022. And it'll see if things are any different now than, the last time he ran. He was in the primary versus Bruce Rauner and a host of others. And he also, in 2010, was the nominee out of a crowded field. Ran
Came
against
really close to Pat Quinn that year.
He did. He came close to Quinn and lost. But it's come out since then in Rich Miller's Capitol Facts that Brady is more likely to being pushed out because of a lack of progress by the Republican Party, and a desire by other folks in the caucus to get him out. You'll recall it's not really a unified caucus, or at least it wasn't when Christine Radogno was the leader, and there was a faction trying to, get at her. But nevertheless, Brady's plan would be for now to remain in the Senate, but not be the minority leader. Right. And whether this is his idea or not, we can debate that. But the bottom line is he's not going to be running when they elect their leaders for the new General Assembly.
Right. Now, Dave, just continuing quickly, the Senate Republicans will still have a severe deficit. As Charlie said, it might change a little, but it's been 40 Democrats to 19 Republicans. So the Republican, but leadership, I think you've mentioned a couple of names to me before the show about who might be there, might be vying for leadership.
Yeah, the names that have bubbled up have been Dan McConkey from Hawthorne Woods.
I think that's right, in the suburbs.
He happens to be the only one in the General Assembly to use a wheelchair, if you've seen him around the Capitol. And the other one would be from Bloomington, Jason Barrickman. He's been pretty visible and pretty active. Used to be in the Champaign area. Now he's kind of slipped over to the Bloomington area. So, it'll be interesting to see who's there and if they have much of a fight by the end or if they all come together by acclamation. Kumbaya.
Yep. Well, we'll see how that goes.
And it's going to be a micro caucus again because didn't we say that the only flip in the Senate could be the Oberweis seat?
Right.
Could be.
Right, and we don't know that yet.
So they're still not going to have very many people in the Senate Republican caucus.
Right. Charlie, one other thing that happened is I guess we've had for the first time in Illinois history a member of the Supreme Court, Thomas Kilbride, who voters said, we're not retaining you. Yeah,
and again, there were some suggestions that it was because he was tied to Madigan. The Republicans did a very good job of portraying Kilbride as being a marionette of Mike Madigan. Other people, I saw some comments on, I believe it was Rich Miller's website saying, well, he's been there 20 years. We should have term limits on Supreme Court justices. And he would have been starting his third 10-year term. He got the majority of the votes favoring him, something like 55, 56%. But to be retained, you need a 60% margin. And so he missed on that count. Now, it's unclear, since, as you said, this has never happened in modern Illinois history with the new Constitution. it's unclear what will occur. His current term expires, I believe, in the first week of December. There will be a vacancy, and the Constitution suggests that the Supreme Court fill that vacancy. Whether or not they will, who knows? Some Republicans are hoping that they will be a split, a 3-3 partisan split. They'll let the seat go vacant until December of 2022, and that will, I don't really know what their thinking might be. There was some speculation that, well, there'll be a redistricting, and if the Democrats don't have a majority on redistricting, they won't be able to gerrymander. They can do it through the legislature, the governor can sign it, but without a majority on the court, they won't be able to uphold it. But I'm thinking, had they read the Constitution, they would realize that the Constitution says that the Supreme Court has exclusive and initial jurisdiction. So the case would not go to a circuit court, it would go to the Supreme Court. And the general supposition is that whatever the legislature passes is legitimate, it's constitutional until a court says no. So if there is a 3-3 split and the Democrats gerrymander the map, you're going to be stuck with a case. If they do it on partisan basis, there'll be 3 Democrats saying it's legit, 3 Republicans say no, it's unconstitutional, and it'll be upheld.
Yeah, well, it's very interesting. And the other interesting part of this is, and I've written about this in the past, I think in the last 2 census cycles every decade, but the legislature has not changed those judicial districts that where we elect our judges from, even though the population has shifted. So it would be a major change in Illinois policy for the legislature to actually redistrict the courts after this census.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, I believe, I can't recall the Supreme Court districts being changed from the inception of the new Constitution.
I think
Senator Phillip tried it in the mid-90s, and he messed it up because he changed the Supreme Court districts, but he forgot to align the circuit court districts with what the Supreme Court was. And here's another thought. I went through and I looked at the numbers. If you subtract Cook County, which gets 3 judges by the Constitution, the remainder of the state is roughly 7.6 billion residents, or million residents, pardon me. You divide it by the other 4 districts, it's roughly 1.9 million per district. What would stop the Democrats from coming in and saying, okay, we're going to take Lake McHenry and Kane and make them one court district?
Right. If you did it on population, you're right. You'd probably have less representation downstate.
Oh yeah, and if you look at the map now, roughly everything south of Taylorville is in the 5th district. So that's more than a third of the state. Almost half of the state is in one court district, and because of population. And when the census numbers come out, I don't think anybody expects that downstate Illinois, southern Illinois is going to have a boom in population. I think it's going to go the other way.
Yeah. Dave, we should get back to something that's really real in people's lives every day, election or not, and that's coronavirus. Now all of the state, all 11 regions are under mitigation, where the governor has said that his health experts tell him it would be best no indoor service in restaurants or bars. There's been some pushback from like the city of Springfield that's doing a 2-week kind of half mitigation where 25% allowed in, and the governor's kind of mad at that. But Dave, the virus is back, not going away. The governor is issuing warnings. Director Ezeke of our health department in the state is issuing warnings, and we still got the problem, as does the rest of the country.
It's not going away, and you hear about things, they're happening in 2021, like the Boston Marathon. That's being postponed. So if you're already rearranging 2021, I think the people who know things know that this is not close to an end.
Yeah, well, November 3rd has come and gone. We're still talking about it, even though some people said we wouldn't be. We certainly hope that a vaccine will be on the way one of these days, which would, if it gets distributed, will be something that we all look forward to, a more normal life as we go on. Well, that's about all the time we have today. Wow, we've had a busy week, and next time we do the show, we might even know who the next president's going to be. Charlie Wheeler and Dave Dahl, thank you so much for joining me and adding to the conversation. I'm Bernie Schoenburg. Thank all of you for watching, and we'll see you next time on Capitol View.